And everybody's shocked. Oh, yeah, that's true. That makes sense. So how should I know that you really fly in that particular time with the proper hours?
I think it's just based on your memory. Hi pilots! If you're watching this video, big chance you have already flown without the luxury of the horizon from your cockpit, or as we call it, instrument flight. Now that is a very valuable time that you want to make sure you log in your logbook. But when do you log it? How do you log it? In this episode, we will discuss all about that, and we want to make sure that you log it correctly and rack it up quickly. My name is Betsy. This is PilotCast from 14-Day Pilot Flight Academy. Hi Guma, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How about you, Betsy?
I'm good,
Great.
thank you.
I'm really excited for this episode. We're going to talk about the logbook, isn't it?
Right.
All right.
So since you are the chief pilot of 14-Day Pilot, now when we talk about instrument rating course, it's private pilot, so they already know how to fly. This is not the first time that they log in their logbook, right? Log flight hours. But instrument hours is a whole different thing. And many times, even though our students are private pilots, they don't really know how to log it correctly, which numbers goes on which column. And many times, private pilots just follow their CFII logging style. Now, today, I just want to talk about what is actual instrument flight, actual simulated instrument flight, so we can help our fellow pilots, right?
Yes, that's correct. Because I found, unfortunately, around the world, other than the FAA pilots, they don't really get guidance how to fill the logbook. I have seen a lot of pilots through Asia, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, when we check their logbook, when they want to convert their license to the FAA, we found a lot of troubles how they fill the logbook, especially in the instrument part. In ICAO country, when we talk about how they log the instrument time, I have seen a lot of logbook. When they fly like 2 hours total flight time, they also put the instrument time about 2 hours. We cannot put like the same total time at your instrument column, regardless you're flying actual or simulated, right? Because you're not taking off or landing with hood. So if those people want to convert their license into the FAA, so maybe previously they got training from DGCA, EASA, right? Most of our clients from Asia. When they convert and then the FAA designated pilot examiner or any examiner, they want to check their logbook and looking to that particular instrument logbook part, right? They will not happy to see that.
It would raise some eyebrows.
Of course, yeah. And the other part is some countries, they don't really understand what's the difference between the actual instrument and the simulated instrument.
And the thing is that with 14-Day Pilot Flight Academy, since we offer accelerated training, many times we help students who have had their training like dragged out for a lot of months. So we are not their first flight school.
Yes.
So that's why if we get students, which in our previous case, we have a lot of students that come from like Asia.
Correct.
Or any other country, there are some adjustments that we have to find and we have to see. That's why we look at their logbook and we do find these kind of anomalies.
Correct. And the main problem is when we do adjustment on their logbooks, right? If you see, the instructor should get notice on that, and then also the examiner of DGCA should know about that.
Right, and that will be such a long process. So we just want to make sure that that doesn't happen in the first place.
Because when you go to the examiner, you already book it like earlier.
Right.
They have really solid schedule and really rare you can get an examiner like a week or 2 weeks after your training, then you want to book the check ride. Normally their waiting line is about 3 weeks to 2 months.
Right.
So when you do all the trainings and finally you got a schedule, you show up to the examiner and finally they say that I'm sorry, I cannot continue the check ride because this is not proper. You have to do correction and meet me another month. So what do you expect? What are you going to do? You're going to stuck in the United States. You cannot go home, right?
Right.
So we're really concerned and we don't want this happen to all the students.
Right. So for fellow pilots who are watching right now who right now are thinking like, oh, maybe I did some mistake in my logbook. Let's just go through what is actually an instrument time.
Yes.
Based on
The regulation?
Based on the regulation, yeah.
I'm really interested.
Yeah. All right, here it is. We're looking at FAR Part 61.51.
Okay.
It is talking about
How we lock the flight, right?
Right, how we log the flight. And for this one, is particularly on instrument time. It is said that a person may log instrument time only for that flight time when the person operates the aircraft solely by reference to instrument under actual or simulated instrument flight.
So I have very interesting case on this.
Oh, yeah.
Some flight school that I found in Asia, okay, maybe in Indonesia or maybe Malaysia, when they fly with the students, it's not common for them to fly with the fuggles or hood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, some of them, they're flying on that, but the other schools, they don't really care, and they just put like a paper or newspaper on the windshield.
Oh, so like block the windshield?
Block the windshield. And I told with some of my friends, they're local instructors in Asia, hey, that's not a good idea because you block for both pilot visual, right?
The reason why you want to have a safety pilot when the weather is not actual IMC is you want to look at other traffic. All right, so it also mentioned about actual and simulated flight.
Yes.
And I think we already touched on this topic on how when the weather is not IMC, instrument meteorological condition, and so where does that fall? Does that fall into actual instrument time or simulated instrument time?
Okay, that's a great question. So what is simulated and what is actual? We can revert to the next regulation.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we got info, the FAA information for operators. Simulated instrument flight condition using a fuel limiting device flown in an aircraft with a safety pilot.
Right.
So you can only lock your time, simulate it, when the weather is not IMC, you're not inside the clouds, right? That's number one. And number two, when you are using the fuel limiting device. And number three, the safety pilot must be there.
Right.
So the safety pilot minimum will be a private pilot and has authority to fly that airplane.
Now with actual, I think it's pretty straightforward. It is actual when even without a view limiting device, you look outside, you don't get any visual, you don't get your horizon, you don't get any visual reference.
Correct. When you take a flight training and your flight instructor is there, you're putting everything with the fuggles limiting device, right? That's completely different aspect of the sensing and the pressure comparing with you enter the clouds and everything is white in your windshield, right? Is really different.
Right. And also when we're talking about flying in VMC, visual meteorological condition, that is when people use a fuel limiting device and they don't necessarily have to operate an IFR flight plan. So they can fly with VFR flight following and they can do practice approaches, and that even though they're practicing like approaches, instrument approaches, they do have some more room in terms of like making errors, in terms of getting instruction from the ATC, because basically they're still operating VFR. And if the pilot is operating in actual IMC, it is right away they have to have an IFR flight plan, and things get more.
Everything gets more pressure.
Correct. Yeah, the ATC gives more. The ATC would give like more attention to you. They will guide you because presumably you cannot look outside. You cannot see the traffic.
You jump into the clouds and you cannot see anything. Then suddenly your flight rules just become instrument. Then all the instruction will be under instrument.
Correct.
Fly to this VOR. Hold at this point. Prepare your approach chart. Can you imagine you're busy with the cockpit management, but you cannot see outside? Right?
Yes.
So that will be like a huge workload on that. And the only way to handle that situation is flying and keep training in proper way, right? Whether on the actual or on simulated. So let's take a look to some logbook example here.
Absolutely. So this one is the
proper way to log?
This is the proper way to log. We have a flight that's happening at the 10th of August with PA 28. And
That's your registration?
Yes,
right?
yeah. And then aircraft identification is 63903 Charlie from Van Nuys to Van Nuys, which we will see a lot in people in the logbook of people who are doing practice approaches because they're
Yes.
not landing.
Correct.
It's misapproach from one misapproach to another misapproach. Let's say for this example, the total duration of flight is 1.8. And the next one is here. We see a column of actual instrument and simulated instrument, which shows 0.4 for actual instrument and
1.3 on the simulated, right?
1.3 for the simulated with number of approaches 3.
All right, good.
And interesting part is, well, we already write down like pilot in command as 1.8, dual receive as 1.8. Interesting thing that we can see is that 0.4 plus 1.3 does not equal 1.8.
Correct. You have 0.1,
Yes.
which is that 6 minutes, right?
Yes. Yeah. Maybe 6 minutes is a little bit like pretty short, but like a normal visual time that pilot do get subtracted is usually like 0.3.
Yeah,
0.4.
0.2 and 3, because when you fly in the real IMC, like maybe you got marginal VFR above the airport, so it could be 0.2 because after 200 feet, then the instructor will say, I have control, put your hood on,
Right.
and then you have control back. And also, when you approach, reach the minimums, then
You
we
take
open.
out.
So I think 0.1 still makes sense.
The next one is a typical logbook entry that students put or pilots put if they are flying in a simulator.
Nice, yeah, nice example.
Yeah. So this one, let's say the pilot is practicing in a simulator on the 10th of August. So aircraft make and model, we put AATD. Aircraft identification.
You
is,
have to put the serial number
Yeah.
of that simulator. Yeah.
And here is when it makes more sense. Simulated instrument is 1.8 with 3 approaches. Flight simulator 1.8.
Okay, that's another problem on that. Okay. If you see the top titles, conditions of flight.
Right.
Some examiner, they don't want to see this. That's why when I was in private pilot, they want me to put another empty box here, AATD IFR.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because they don't want you to put that on the simulated instrument because that's a flight. And the simulator is not flight.
It's not a flight.
But if you get a training in that simulator, but you are putting all the actual, all white, right? You need to put another log, flight simulator or AATD IFR, because you are not always doing the AATD with instrument, IMC, right?
Okay.
So you need to separate that, put into another empty box. That's why I love the FAA logbook. They put like empty box there. So maybe you
Yes,
fly
yeah.
the jet or you fly the
Right.
complex airplane, then you can put it there.
And this is another one that we want to discuss. So looking at how it is logged, all the numbers, it is clear that it's not how we usually log it
Correct.
here in the USA. And yeah, maybe do you want to
Okay,
elaborate
so
on
this
this?
is one of my students when we checked their logbook. The mistake number 1, the instructor, they didn't even put the number on the first pilot or second pilot on each line. So we can see very clear that this is like a 3 rows of flight. They don't put anything on the second and third row.
Yeah,
That's
or-
the first mistake.
Right.
Right. And then the other one, when I checked to the students, okay, if I cannot find the total time on the second and third row, and I see here the second and third row under instrument flying, so how many hours that you actually fly in that as a flight time? And he said like 1 hour. Oh, so you fly 1 hour and the whole hour
Is actual.
instrument, right?
Yes,
Actual.
actual
They don't
instrument.
This is good actually. They have link, they have hood, and they have actual, which is this simulated,
Right.
And
Him
this
of
is the
hood
AATD IFR that I told you before.
Right.
But they put everything here in actual. So I was asking, so is that true that when you flew that time, were you fly under takeoff and landing with that? What do you call it? Actual instrument
Yes,
or using the view limiting device? Oh no. So why should you put this?
Yeah. So,
And everybody's shocked. Oh yeah, that's true. That makes sense. So how should I know that you really fly in that particular time with the proper hours?
Right. And since it's empty I think it's just based on your memory.
Yes, because you need to change everything and you have to call the DGCA to verify everything about this flight.
Right.
See?
Right. Oh, wow. It is a very eye-opening session,
Yeah.
huh? And especially when a lot of pilots, they want to go like forward to part 135, part 121. They do take put a lot of attention on instrument time.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because they don't fly visually.
The pilot and command time and the instrument time.
All right. That was a very dense and very informative session. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. So hopefully everyone who watches us, they start learning how
Yes.
to log the time properly.
Yes, because like what I said in the beginning, a lot of people want to make sure that they rack it up quickly because that matters for like part 121, part 135. But the most important thing is that they log it correctly.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much, Betsy.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you very much, Gema. All right, guys, so that is all for the first episode of PilotCast. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any more questions that you want us to discuss about, please feel free to drop your comments below and give us all of your questions. If you want to make sure that you don't miss our next episode of PilotCast, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share to your other fellow pilots. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.